everybody. Greg Chapman here. Today we have a special guest, Alex Terranova, author of Fictional Authenticity. Alex, could you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your book for our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am I like to say I'm an author now first. Like it's way better. It sounds better that way. And
Yeah.
I was somebody who always wanted to, well, I shouldn't say always because I struggled a lot with writing and reading when I was a kid, but as an adult, like I knew I wanted to publish a book. So I'm an author, I'm a performance coach. I host two podcasts, the Dream Mason podcast, and then I co-host my mentor's podcast, which has existed for 17 years, like before there
Okay.
were even, it's like internet radio back then, called
Yeah.
The Coaching Show. And I'm actually was just sharing with you, I'm working on a documentary. So I'm up
Okay.
to a lot of different things.
What's your documentary about?
The documentary is a project a friend of mine brought to me, and it's we're still in the early stages, but it's all about like energy work and healing and chakras and the earth and the planet. And I'm like your everyman in the experience. You know, I'm
Okay.
sitting in a room with people that are very like having conversations and I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. What is what is your chakra balancing to your third degree to your fifth level of consciousness? I'm like, wait, what is this?
Yeah,
So it's getting to explore these things that I think are really interesting, but I don't know anything about.
that's true. I spent probably a year or so working with, I call them the Encinitas crowd.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
like maybe I was just at a point in my life where I think I needed to look more inward, so that
Yeah.
those people tended to be my clients, and I definitely know exactly where you're at. I just spent a lot of time just listening and being like, none of this makes any sense to me, but you have a good energy about you, so it can't be completely full of shit, you
Yeah,
know?
no, I feel the same way. Like they're good people and they want good things. And I love that most of the time when I'm like playful or teasing about it, they're open to it. And
Yeah,
like I'm learning, and my kind of thing is like we don't know anything, right? Like none of us were born with like a handbook or a manual.
no,
And so I sometimes say to my clients, I'm like, we're just making everything up. So like you might as well make up good things,
yeah.
you know.
I mean, before the scientific method, everything was just what people experienced and the rational decisions that they made upon their experiences, and then which they just shared with other people through
Yeah.
storytelling. So there was no proof or evidence. There's just, this is what we found works, and this is why we think it's this way.
And science, and when even like science, right? We see this with health, where we're like, this is healthy, and then like 5 years later, people are like, this isn't healthy. It's like
No,
science changes constantly too, you know.
it does. It's like we were growing up, the food pyramid,
Oh yeah,
which we learned they did have the science to show that sugar and carbs and everything is bad for you. It's just that the FDA was paid off by certain people in the food industry to hide those studies.
yeah.
So, who are we supposed to trust?
That's it's actually a great. So I mean, if we, you know, you asked me to introduce myself and look at my book, I think that ultimately that it's ourselves. Like I really believe part of me writing this book, Fictional Authenticity, was because I actually didn't trust myself, like as a child growing up, as a human being. So as a little kid, I remember looking at the world and going, like seeing Hulk Hogan and being like, oh, that's what a man's supposed to look like.
Yeah,
Seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger, seeing Sylvester Stallone, and as a little kid brain, right, being like, that's what a man is. Men have muscles. Men are like ferocious and tough. And then my dad's family's background is Italian, so then I was like obsessed with like all the mafia movies
okay.
from when I like in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, right? And then I was like, well, they're scary too, right? They're scary, they're forceful, they get what they want. And all of a sudden, as a little kid, I'm trying to make myself into these
Yeah.
like caricatures, right? And
Hmm.
pulling them all in. For whatever reason, I was like really good at that. I happened to be great at this, and and at 32, all of a sudden going, holy shit, who am I? I don't know who I am. I don't know. I can't trust myself. I don't believe anything. I'm basically living a lie.
Yeah. So you basically, what you're saying is that you molded who you were based upon just the inputs you received from everywhere growing up. Like you didn't
Yeah.
actually have anybody sit you down and be like, this is some real world experience. This is, you know, how you're actually supposed to act in these situations. You basically learn from media.
Well, I think actually everybody to a certain degree is living a fictionally authentic life. So it seems real.
So your id and your ego, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They think they're being honest. They think but they don't realize that they're actually just operating like 98% of the time from habits, behaviors, and patterns. So when something happens, there's like a reaction, and and I think that so the people around us, right? Like my parents are amazing people, but they have their own
Hmm.
like fictional, authentic life,
Yeah,
and so I
I
think,
did actually read the book. They had a system of worry ingrained
yeah.
because of.
Thanks for reading the book.
I
That's
did.
I appreciate
I
that.
powered through it yesterday. Like the rest, I finished like a third of it over the last week. Then yesterday there was like 2/3 left, and I was like, all right.
It's an easy read. Like it's not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a quick
yeah,
read.
yeah.
Yeah. And I do a lot of studying on this, so I really enjoyed seeing your perspective on how you navigated changing your own personality, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see that in my family a lot too, like the worry syndrome, like just always worried or anxious or scared of injury or loss
Hmm.
because they're just from a different time, and not being aware of that they're running like that's their core operating system.
Yeah.
And
It's like fear, basically. Fear
yeah,
is. I mean, I say it in there, and it's like I think it's very dramatic, right? But like fear or love,
hmm,
and there's a spectrum, right? It's not like one or the other all the way.
yeah,
But I think like, hey, which side of the pendulum are you on? And when we're in the love side, it's like we're creating. We're doing stuff like this, right? We're like creating, we're having new conversations, we're open to
you're
ideas.
trusting that other people have your best interests in heart,
Yeah.
or at least
There's
don't have bad interests in their heart.
Well, and you can connect in one of the things I love about podcasting is we connect with people in like a second, right?
Hmm.
You and I after this could be like lifelong friends
We probably will be.
from
I'm
like a
not gonna
moment.
lie.
No, no,
I feel it already.
and I have this same experience with people that come on my shows. Is I'm like, man, when you're in school and you're a little kid, you make friends so easily, and then you go become a grown up, and it's like
Hmm.
seems like it's so hard to make friends because we have like all these walls and protections up because we're not being authentic, right? We're
Yeah.
terrified to be authentic, but we don't even realize we're terrified to be authentic, or we got reasons or excuses of why it's safe to be like that. It's smart to be like that. But I find that when I'm sitting with people in podcasts, especially people that want to be on them, like we often will put down our guards and we connect, and then I'm like, oh my god, I have a new friend in
Yeah.
like minutes.
I think that's why podcasts are gaining so much popularity, is because of that fact. Everything that people are exposed to right now are people's inauthentic lives. Their Facebook. They're seeing everybody's highlight reel,
Yeah,
but they're living in their own fucking editing room, like
yeah.
seeing all the bad takes. But I mean, I do a lot of filming. But what was I saying?
Yeah,
Totally
about
lost my track there.
out like how we're editing our life, we're living inauthentically.
Yeah, so podcasts are so open format. The reason why I think people are really connecting with them is because it isn't a 1 minute or a 3 minute marketing video showing us the highlight. It's giving people an actual chance to watch a conversation blossom and two
Yeah.
people actually get to know each other. Like that's exactly what it is. Like we're here, we're forced to be here, and we're forced to cut out everything. We're forced to put our phone down. So there's no TV in here. There's nobody else joining the conversation for sound quality
Yeah.
reasons. All of that. Like
Yeah.
it's just you and me. How often do we get a chance to actually be one on one for even just 5 minutes anymore?
Yeah, I mean, not like never, right? Like, I mean, I do it with my clients, and and I think we do it sometimes, but then it's not even it's not the same depth of like vulnerability,
Yeah.
because right in business we all of a sudden have a new layer. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're not, and not always, but I know people show up to me and that's like they have some pretend thing going on, and then usually we figure out what it is.
Yeah.
But then there's another layer of protection that shows up.
Exactly. And then, God, because you have to protect your business. Your business is like a child. Like,
Yeah, that's a great way to
without
say it.
you, it will die. You have to give it your attention all day, every day. It
Yeah.
will run into things. It will knock shit over. It will break. It will lose you money faster than you know what's going on. Like, you have to give it all of your attention, and you have to treat it specially.
It's a really cool point because if you think about our childhoods, and this is so like I say to like when I meet parents, or I'm not a parent, but when I meet parents or when I work with parents, one of the things I often say is like, you can't do this right. Like, yes, you can love your kids, you can not abuse. There's a lot of things you cannot do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But no matter what you do, the child brain doesn't understand logic for whatever reason, so it makes up stories based on all sorts of things. And I think when you say like a child, like a business is like a child. Well, think about when we're kids, right? If you have kids, you think about your kids. If you don't have kids, just think about what it's like. What's the thing that we most say to kids? No, right?
Yeah.
And it's from protection, right? We can't not do that. They're
Yeah.
they're
It's
touching
like
things, they're
you
breaking.
will give yourself brain damage if you keep doing this. Like,
Absolutely. So we have to say there's a part of like to we have to do this in a way, especially in the world we've created where there's so many things that can injure a little
oh
child.
yeah.
And then yet that's the first impression that's essentially built into who we are is no. And what is that, right? What does that do to us? I think about it with dogs too. Like if you think about how often you say if you have a dog or a pet,
Uh-huh.
you're like no all the time, and then who cares what the dog is interpreting it as? But like the thing that's leaving your mouth, the thing that you're speaking
It's
constantly
negativity.
is a negative, like lower kind of energy vibration. Like it's
Yeah.
just there's no possibility in
God, that is.
no.
But what do you say to a kid besides no? Because it's like they're 3. You can't
Yeah.
sit them down and give them the whole. I want to tell you no, but I need to explain why it's no and what you can do instead to become a yes. Because like that's how you coach
can't.
adults.
Sure. Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
can't just no
Well,
bad. You have to explain why, and then if you're good at it, maneuver them into a proper path and have them like accept that and realize that. But you can't do that with a kid.
I don't, look. I don't. I definitely don't pretend to have all the answers because
Right?
otherwise we wouldn't be living in a world that's so messed up, right? I just would have told
Yeah.
everybody. I think the thing and we've created a world that we're moving so fast that like no is a quick thing, right? Versus taking your kid and sitting them down and explaining and connecting and loving and whatever. Do you know who I feel like I'm gonna butcher her name. I think it's Yonda Rhimes. She's like she is like one of the biggest like Hollywood like writers, producers. She
Okay.
has like Grey's Anatomy, How to Make a Murder, like but she is the like just she's just killing it, right? She wrote a book called The Year of Yes.
Okay.
Because and I don't know the whole story. You can look her up. She's huge. But The Year of Yes, she realized that as a single mother who was like hustling and killing it in the industry, she was saying no to her kids all the time, right? Like I can't play. No, I can't play with you. No, stop doing this. No, and she noticed this, and so she took on a practice for a year of basically saying yes and allowing everything, which is really cool.
Wow.
Michael Singer has a book called The Surrender Experiment. I don't know if you.
I mean, I have seen the movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey.
Yeah, it's not the same, right? Michael Singer's is like, what if we just stopped pushing against everything? We just like surrendered and allowed things to flow into our life. Kind of like if you put a leaf on a river, like just let it
Okay.
go and see what happens.
Yeah, so a bit of Taoist philosophy.
What is it?
Taoism?
Taoist, yeah.
Yeah, just kind of jump in the river of life. Trust it's going to take you where you need to go.
Yeah. And she talks about how a lot of it was just because she's like was rushing, right? She was up to so much. And that by like slowing down and connecting, first of all, her life, like, I shouldn't say a percentage for her, right?
Yeah.
But her life changed incrementally better. She got happier. The relationship with her kids got better. I think her work got better. I mean, she's still huge. It's not like she fell off.
Yeah.
But
I mean, yeah, I wonder what opportunities came to her because of that. Because I feel like when you do that, it's teaching yourself just to, I guess, create an atmosphere of gratitude around yourself, of acceptance. Like when I was learning how to make more profit with my business, people were like, you have to start saying yes to everything around money. Whenever anybody offers you something, $5,
Sure.
even if you're like trying to be prideful, don't take it.
Yeah.
Just say yes. Any gifts, yes. Anything. So you create this atmosphere of, I guess, abundance around you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess that's probably the same thing. When people know that you're going to say yes to opportunities, they're going to start presenting more opportunities to you because they know that they're not going to have a hard fight. Like if it's a bad opportunity, like obviously it's going to be a bad opportunity, but there's so many great opportunities that people are just scared to share because they're scared that everyone's going to say no, because not everyone's a trained salesman to go out and
Yeah.
find the no's.
Well, to wrap it back, right? We're trained to say no. It's the first thing.
Exactly.
So our default is no. I was for so many years was basically was a no to everything. Can I use whatever language I want?
Man,
I was
fucking talk however you want.
I was pretty much like a fuck you to everything in life. But what I realized because of an amazing mentor,
Because you wanted to be the cool kid.
the cool kid, but also
Yeah.
because it kept you safe, right? If I could say no, what I thought was like, I'm saying fuck you. I was actually saying fuck me.
Yeah.
Like often the no that the fuck you that we kick out to the world is really a fuck me, and we don't see it because we're like projecting it outward. But all the shit I missed, all the experiences, all the
Hmm.
cool things in like trying to be a certain way. So all the no's, and I think about now one of my is like if you look at body language, a no is like a stop, a push away, right? The only time
Yeah.
that is good is like a Heisman pose. It's the only time you're like the no is a good, but a yes is like right arms open. It's like welcoming. Like what can
Yeah.
be in this? It opens up space. It's expansive. It's actually everything that we want, but it's terrifying.
It's super terrifying
Um,
because it means there's more unknowns.
Well, and look,
Like
if I do this,
variables.
right, like I'm
Yeah.
super vulnerable, like my heart's exposed. Like if we were just thinking like men in
Yeah.
war, right?
Hmm.
This is not how you go into battle. You don't fight like this,
No.
right? You fight like closed off, shut down,
Hmm.
protected, which is a natural. It's part of something we learn too, right? Like
Yeah.
keep yourself protected, safe.
But we're only truly protected when we have a community around us, right? When you're by yourself, you're the most vulnerable. So if you feel like you're protecting yourself by shutting everybody out, you're actually
Yeah,
making yourself weaker.
yeah, yeah.
So
Totally.
you almost to make yourself stronger, you have to say, "Come around me, be around me."
And trust them and be vulnerable
Hmm.
to them. I remember the first time um, somebody it was a coach I had said to me, um, "What would surrender like what does surrender mean to you?" And I was like, it was like surrender or vulnerable. It was like same conversation. I was like, well, man, vulnerable is like where we like attack the castle.
Yeah,
That's like the spot. Like we're hitting them right there. You could look at football,
it's a
right?
weak
Like
spot.
we're gonna hit that like we're gonna hit the defensive tackle because he's the weakest guy on the line, and we're gonna like run through that hole over and over again, right? So in certain situations, that's what it means. But in most of life, I mean, we're not in war. Like
No,
we're like fine. And most people that are listening to this are have their basic needs met, right? Because they're
yeah,
not listening to podcasts if they don't have their basic needs met.
it's
I
very true.
I like to remind people that like this isn't a conversation for people that don't. If you don't have food, air, shelter, water, don't listen to this podcast. How do we help you get food, air, shelter, water? This is for people that are like actually they have an iPhone, they have jobs, like, and yet there's still something missing, right? Like there's something that's not working or whatnot. And is that idea that you actually have to be brave enough, right, to open up. Firemen are vulnerable, policemen are vulnerable because they could die at any minute. You know, us talking about feelings or whatnot is on a vulnerable side because we expose ourselves to
Hmm.
being made fun of, being poked at, being like, oh, we're not manly, we're not like the all these like lies and things that
Yeah,
we've been bred.
everything that we were told. It's so finding your strength, opening up. Like, so I grew up in Denver. One of the reasons I moved to San Diego was to figure out because my businesses were failing because what my business goals weren't lining up with who I actually was,
Mm-hmm.
but they were with lining up with who I thought I was.
Okay.
So I had to move somewhere by myself to remove myself of the daily expectations of the people that I grew up with because when people spend enough time with you, they expect you to be a certain person in their life so that
Sure.
they can operate normally.
Yeah.
So you don't
That's
have
good.
the freedom to grow and change as easily when you have all of that around you daily. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
people that might expect you to give them rides to work, or that expect you to go out to lunch with them once a week, or expect you to every time they go out to the bars, like you're going with them. They're
Yeah.
going to go to the same bars because it's what's comfortable. You know, stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. Like how are you expected to grow and change and do that when you have everybody around you? So I know not everybody's in a position where they can just up and leave. Like I was lucky that I didn't have any responsibilities past myself.
Sure. Yeah.
But a lot of people have to be a lot stronger than I was, and they have to be able to say no to people's faces
Mm-hmm.
in order to set those boundaries so that they can actually open themselves up.
Well, and saying no to someone else, we could like twist it too, and it could be like saying yes to yourself, right? Like
Exactly.
saying me saying no, I'm not going to go to the bar with you every single night, is actually
Hmm.
saying yes to my well-being, my sleep, my
Yeah, and
whatever.
future opportunities.
Yeah.
Like you know that nothing is going to come out of staying the same.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to grow and move forward. And so, yeah, it's not saying a no all the way around. It's not being a no person. It's saying no to some situations and some people so that you can say yes to a lot more.
Yeah, you just reminded me. I was talking to my cousin who is just she's a prodigy. She's a genius. Like right when it comes to personal development, it's like I've been in this longer than her. She kind of found it through me, but she is like
She just gets it.
she just gets it, and I'm like, and I hate her for it, right? Like I hate her in a loving way, and we mess around about this. But she said we were having this conversation. We support each other a lot, and we're talking the other day, and she goes, "I don't get it, man. Like about this person." She was like, "You know what's at home." Like you know and whatever home means, right? You know what's in that relationship. You know what's at that job, but you don't know what's in that other option, right? Like if you don't, instead of like coming right home after work, you don't know what's at the bar, you don't know what's at the restaurant, the grocery store, the dance class, the gym, like these places maybe that you aren't comfortable, whatever they are for you. And that's where possibility is, right? Because when whatever your home is in whatever area, you know what's there and you're going to just get that all the
Yeah.
time. You knew what was in Denver. I actually knew I left Los Angeles at 30 and really like hit on all this at 32 and really was like changing my I mean you know from the book.
Yeah.
But I knew when I left New York at about I was like 35, I knew I couldn't go back to LA. And LA's fine, great. Like people love it. I loved growing up there.
Yeah.
But for me it's like I knew what was there but I didn't know what would be in San Diego, or I lived in a few other places, but before I got to San Diego to try it out. But it was all possibility, right? And the things that I've gotten here, I don't know that I ever could have gotten if I picked what I knew, right?
Right. God, San Diego's this magical place. It's just such. It's amazing. There's there's a strong duality to San Diego, I guess. Like everybody that moved here, like they say, locals are unicorns. Like nobody's really a local here. Everyone that's here and is actually like active in the business community is generally from somewhere else, and they're all pretty much loners. People that are lone wolves. I shouldn't say loners. There's a negative connotation with the word loner, even though I think a lot of strong people are basically loners, but or they just like time with themselves. But because of that, since everybody here kind of likes to do things on their own, it's created an amazing community where there's not really like niches or crowds or things like that I've seen in every other city I've spent time in, where people only hang out in these circles.
Sure.
Like everybody you talk to that goes out and is a person in the community, you see them here, you see them there, you see them there, you see people just popping up randomly, and everybody is friends with everybody.
Yeah.
And it's really just a weird, special experience. Like this city can be very lonely, or it can be just completely fulfilling, and it's like completely up to you, like how much you involve yourself with the crowd.
It's interesting. Like, yeah, I haven't. I love it. I've been here for like a year and a half. And I haven't. I don't know why I love it. Like, I just know. Like, I just feel like I love it. Right? It feels good to be here. But you're right. In other cities that I've been in, it's like you stuck to like an area. And I noticed that I've been here. Yeah, I like to like hang out on where I live, right? Because it's easy, it's convenient. I just don't have to a lot of energy. But I do spend more time in this city going to different areas, like with different, like showing different people things, and I'm like, you see different crowds, and it's actually very accepted. Like I've never seen like issues with that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, really, the only people that we have problems with are fucking zonies during the summer.
Zonies, is that like the
Arizona.
oh, okay. Oh, they
Oh
come
man,
in.
they
That's
come
funny.
over here, they party hard.
That's all right. Zonies.
You know what though? No hate on them. You guys got to get the fuck out of Arizona and have some fun. It's hot there. It probably fries your brain a little bit. You can't hate.
Yeah, that's like yeah. All right. When I was in my like late 20s, early 30s, I was running restaurants and bars and bartending at times in Hermosa and Manhattan Beach.
Okay.
And those areas were like dominated, but those people know how to have fun.
Oh man.
Those Arizona State and Arizona graduates like
Yeah.
grow up and they still know how to have fun.
They just they just like to fuck shit up. Like I'm not even gonna lie, like they make a profession. Like starting inwardly, like fucking shit up here and then fucking shit up out there. Like they just don't care. It's great. Like you'll see 40-year-olds partying like they're 19.
I've never talked about this before on a podcast on my own or anyone else's. But yes, you do see 40-year-olds partying like they're 19 in like areas like that. Yeah, totally.
I just don't know how they're alive. It's impressive. Like I'm just turning 32, and I'm like, I used to drink a lot, like party a lot. It's like I just can't anymore. I don't get it. I'm like, how are you guys even able to function?
Like yeah, it's so I'm 30. I'm 37. And I used to. I I don't anymore. I just can't. It's not that I can't. It's the guy, the man I want to be, like the authentic person I want to be, is isn't able to drink every night, right? It's I physically can. Like if you want to go out and you want to drink until we're like on the floor, that's like I can do that with you. That's great. But the next day, I can't sit and write my book. I can't show up powerfully on a podcast. I can't get on the phone with clients.
No.
Now, I couldn't have done that when I was 25 either. Like that, I wouldn't have been. But the guy I was trying to be when I was 25,
Totally different person.
super inauthentic, was like 28, 30, super inauthentic, was trying to, fit in a certain way, keep a persona, like, it was basically, this from some point in your life when you're like playing a video game and you have to like make a character, right? You give them all the attributes. Well, that's who they are then, right? Well, I assigned myself all the attributes, and then I had to do the actions to fulfill.
You bought the clothes from the right place. You had a certain kind of car.
Yeah.
You had the apartment that you could bring girls back to and entertain them, and
you have to fit. And so your actions.
You're a young, successful package.
Yeah, and your actions show that and keep reaffirming that. And I think that's the crazy thing is that works the opposite way too. If you think inside, oh, I'm like a piece of shit. Now, I didn't like myself, but my outward was I'm going to overcompensate in this way to kind of fill that out. But then there's other people that actually reflect that I'm a piece of shit, on the outside, right? They don't take care of themselves. Maybe they're like very out of shape, or they're like, the various ways we can not take care of ourselves. They don't make the money that they actually deserve. They're always like the victim of things. They just expressed it instead of I covered it up and hid it. But that's not authentic either. Because I don't believe that anybody is a piece of shit. That's not right. Like if you wanna live a shitty life, it's a choice. But that's not who you are. Because there was never a baby that was like, there was no like 3-year-old that was like beating people up and hurting other people. That's not a thing. So at some point along the way, something changed and had somebody go a different direction.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. It's like people can be better or worse than other people, but nobody has more or less rights to be who they want or need to be in any situation.
And even better or worse, right? Like if you're better, what I saw Bill Gates, is it Bill Gates? I've been watching that like In the Mind of Bill Gates. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't watched that yet.
So I think it's on Netflix.
Okay.
And I haven't seen all of it or a lot of it, but I've seen some episodes, and it basically digs into like how he operates, how he thinks. And look, I'm never going to be as like, I want to say like scientifically or technology smart as Bill Gates, right? But there's other areas that I'm actually a lot smarter than like socially, right? Like I'm probably like connect with people in like a much more easy, and I don't know, right? He might be like, well, he listens to this and he's like, no way, man. But I think
like, I have 20,000 employees.
Yeah, right. But I think like how do we even compare, right? Because if you were like, who's smarter? Well, in what way, right? Like in technology and science and whatnot, yeah, of course he is. But in maybe human connection, I might be like, so how do we even compare better or worse, right? We're different.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I've been watching, I'm sure you pay attention to Gary Vee.
Yeah.
It's impossible to ignore him.
Yeah, he's too loud and too angry.
Yeah, I love the guy. I think he's fucking brilliant.
He is. He's totally brilliant.
But lately he's been spewing a lot about, wow, I just totally lost my train of thought.
I don't know.
Well, fuck.
Here, I'll just talk about Gary Vee for a second.
Let's just keep going.
Well, maybe you'll get it, right? Like
it'll come back to me in a minute.
So, you know what? Gary Vee's a really interesting person for me because he's so. I would love to meet Gary Vee. I'd love to like sit and talk to him, not to like pick his brain, just to see like his humanity, because the Gary Vee that we see is like a rocket launcher. Yes. Right? Like
it's just a pure ball of energy.
Yeah, it's pure energy. It's like always going. It's always forceful. And I think what he does, I love what he does. I think like he's a really powerful stand for people to like knock their bullshit off. But I'd also love to see, like if I could hang out with Gary Vee, it wouldn't be to like pick his brain. It'd be like, what is it like if we're just like having coffee on the couch in the morning? Like,
right?
What's like Gary Vee not on? And maybe it's the same. I don't know.
I mean, he does make a point of people only see like 3% of his life.
Yeah.
Like he has family, he has children, he has all of that. And I just remember what I was gonna say.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't
he's
know
got a
that.
whole
Yeah,
life.
I didn't know that.
Like
Yeah.
he only films and shares the things that he wants to film and share.
Yeah, of course.
He is his own marketing tool.
Yeah.
Like he's probably a way different person off camera.
Yeah.
Maybe he's the same. I don't know. But what he was talking about is people spend a lot of time trying to fix their faults rather than doubling down on their positive energy, their positive sides, what they're good at. So I don't even remember what our conversation was about 10 minutes ago when I was thinking about that. But if you want to rewind the tape and go back to what we were talking about, that's the point I was trying to make. Is that, it comes back to everybody's skills, people's talents. Everybody's different. It's like, yeah, when you're trying to fix your faults, you're trying to make yourself the same as everybody else.
Nice.
As opposed to doubling down on your talents and just becoming more of exactly who you are and who you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because when you're in the mass, there's no room for success. But when you're one of only a couple of people in an area, there's all the room in the world for success and growth. Yeah. And so if you're trying to make yourself more the same as everybody else, you're setting yourself up for long-term failure. Versus, I mean, like if you have problems, like if you have anger problems and shit like that, or or if you are just absolutely like, I don't know, terrible at spelling or getting back to people, like, yeah, maybe set up some things in place to help you not fuck that shit up. But if you're absolutely amazing, like just hopping on the phone and talking with people, like have other people do the stuff that you're shitty at and spend all of your time doing what you're great at.
Yeah.
Like,
and all the stuff that we love about our world is all to that point, right? Like you have all this art behind you.
Yeah.
I can't do any of this. Well, maybe some like that. Maybe
that one I did.
But like maybe this just because it's not as like specific. I don't know. I'm just like throwing that out there. I might be making somebody mad.
And they're so different. Like watercolor,
yeah,
black paint, just white canvas.
And there's no right way, right?
This one it's a mixture of like Elmer's glue, and then he just layers the paint in the cup and puts it on it, and it dumps out. Like,
and imagine if like
they're so different.
The TV shows, the movies, the podcasts, the music, like if all of us had to rap like Tupac, if all of us had to make movies like Steven Spielberg, that would be great for a minute, right? We'd have a whole bunch of stuff that would be amazing, and then we'd all be like, well, that's just normal now.
I mean, that's one of the things happening with Hollywood right now. Is they have a system now where they can pretty accurately predict how much money a movie's going to make before it's even produced.
Yeah.
And that's why we're seeing all of these sequels and trequels and quatrils and prequels and fucking remakes and all this shit. Because they're like, this movie made this much before, people loved it,
copy it,
so we're just going to do it again. And you're seeing the death of all the original movies. Like, where's my Meet Joe Black? Where's my fucking Breakfast at Tiffany's? Where are these movies that are actually like in depth and telling a story? They don't exist anymore because people's choices have been limited in the area, and that's why you're seeing such a decline.
Well, I think it makes people safe too, because right, like I know, like the Marvel movies are good, right? You know what you're gonna get. Now, I think like there's some Marvel movies are great, some maybe not as much.
Yeah.
But like for me, I actually don't want that. Like it's not to say that they're not good or bad. I'm actually not that interested. And I love like comic books are like one of the most original ideas ever, right from the start. But when I go to a Marvel movie, I'm actually like typically disappointed now. And it doesn't matter if it's good or bad because I'm like, I knew exactly what I was gonna get, and there's no surprise. There's no unknown.
Mm-hmm.
I think like Deadpool, and I don't know if Deadpool was Marvel or DC.
Yeah, that's Marvel.
But I think the cool thing about the first Deadpool was it like flipped the script because you were like, well, this is a comedy. First of all, it's not actually a superhero movie. It's a character, right? But it's a really like raw comedy.
What's crazy is, I mean, I never read comic books a lot growing up. I would always watch like Spider-Man and X-Men on TV and stuff. But apparently that movie is really on point with the comic books. Like it was very gory.
But it didn't
dry humor.
fit the movie model, right? So it would have been predictable for them to make it like the other comic book movies to make sure. But they actually went with the authentic version of it, and which actually had to be one of the best.
Yeah, it's absolutely the best. Like I'll watch Deadpool and Deadpool 2 over any other Marvel movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any day, except for the original X-Men.
And same thing, I would go like the rawness. I still go back and watch like the original Batman. I just showed I just showed a friend the Terminator
Michael
1.
Keaton ones?
Well, yeah, but I showed a friend Terminator 1 and Terminator 2. And
He hadn't seen them?
she had never seen them, either one. And she knew what they were, but she'd never seen a Terminator movie. And so we watched the first Terminator.
What?
And I was sitting there and I was like, "Oh my God. First of all, it's not dated. You can watch that first Terminator, and even the scenes with the robots that are like pre-CGI are fine. They still work. It works fine. But the story is brilliant. The characters are brilliant. And it like there's a
You
lot
actually have an anticipation build. Like, there's actually a slight feeling of doom and dread. You don't get that with the constant action films anymore. It's just all visual.
and
Like,
there's
auditory.
and there's a constant question, right? As I'm watching, I know I've seen it so many times. I'm sitting there with her and we're watching, and I'm like, wait, is it like what? It's a chicken and the egg thing, right? But is it like if he like what happens first? Is the future the past? Same with Back to the Future, right?
Oh,
Like
man.
and it makes I love that idea that a movie that makes me think about my own life, and right, like I'm not thinking about time travel, but thinking about the ways that life works. Like, is my fear here before the thing happens, or did the thing happen before the fear? Like,
Interesting.
right? Like I don't know.
Way to loop that back around, by the way. That was really impressive.
You're welcome. That was not
Really,
intentional.
no, it was just good. You saw your opportunity and you jumped. You're right, man. You do have a talent for this. I'm just, whew. I mean, no, you're absolutely right. It's like, because then it's nurture versus nature, right? Like,
Maybe.
is what you're experiencing in the moment affecting your mood for the potential outcome? Or is it something that's been hardwired into you over the course of your life and even down into your genetic level, passed down from your family, on how you're going to react to this situation?
Yeah.
And the closest thing that I think that I've read about is that you always have your initial reaction, and then for the first like half a second, and then you have your actual thoughts on the subject. So, like, what has been beat into you? Like, one of the reasons it's really hard to get over, like, any ism, sexism, racism, all of that, is just because your whole life, these things have been shown to you to feel these ways.
Yeah.
And then, so, every time a situation comes up, like, the first thing that's going to pop in for the half second is, like, this is what I've been conditioned to think. Yeah. But then, you get past that, and you're like, no, I don't actually think that. So
there's another cool layer to that so there's this guru, Indian guru, and his name is Sadhguru. I think that's how you pronounce it, but it's spelled Sadhguru. Like if you actually spell it, but that's not how you'd say it. He's brilliant, and he talks about all sorts of subjects of things, but he talks to like people that would listen to podcasts. His joke that I actually made me realize is he goes, I'm talking to a population of people with bloated bellies and bloated wallets, and he when we look at when we look at, where was I going? Now it's contagious. So, man, I lost that too. Man, now it's contagious. Wait, I'm gonna get it back. So
the coffee's too strong.
Wait,
you're thinking faster than your mouth will work.
I know, right? You were just, but so you were just saying. Let's go back 1 second.
Okay. So when you have an initial reaction to something, you have your initial reaction, which is.
Yeah, you got it. So you gave it back to me. Okay.
Okay.
So he talks about it's even hard to grasp this, right? He talks about intellect a lot, and like the world that you and I exist in, most of us are operating from our intellect, but the intellect is only built off our senses, right? That's how we take in information. We can't have intellect without our senses. So
we're just walking, talking computers that are processing information, electrical information that's given to us.
But intellect is inherently flawed. Because while you can see one side of my hand, you can't see the other. So technically, now you know it exists in your mind, but you actually can't at all perceive what's on the other side. So all your senses right now can't help you at all identify what's on the other side of my hand. It doesn't matter if it's a grain of rice or the earth, the size, your intellect falls short, right? You've seen those experiments where people like, they put something in a box and they're like, feel and guess what it is, and people have no idea, right? Intellect lets you down. We could taste things that we think are like good or healthy, and it could be poison or whatnot. And our hearing lets us down, like all the senses let us down. And what he talks about is the way intellect works is it uses senses to create information, which is inherently lacking. And then all intellect is designed to do is to slice and divide. to create understanding, right? You want to know how I wrote a book? Let's slice it up and figure it out, which is fine. It's not bad, but it's inherently flawed because what about everything else that's available? There's like like I don't know for you, I get my best ideas when I'm like I do hot yoga, and like 45 minutes into a hot yoga class when I'm like drenched, exhausted, mad at the lady next to me because she's 40 years older than me and is still going, and I'm on my mat. All of a sudden, I get hit with like, your company should be called Dream Mason, and it's like, wait, Dream Mason's not even a word. Where did this come? Right? That's not possible from intellect and senses. There's some other.
I know exactly what you mean. I have pretty much every morning I go on like a 3 or 4 mile walk by myself.
Nice.
No cell phone, no nothing, just me and my flip flops.
That's awesome.
And then, like, that's where I get my thinking done. Like, that's where all my ideas come, is because I'm able to just walk and clear it out. And also in yoga, when I'm not able to do yoga, usually at the end doing the shavasana, where they're like, all right, if you don't know, shavasana is at the very end when basically you get to take a nap for 5 minutes. It's the
Just
best part.
two dudes talking about yoga. But I love that walk thing, because I actually noticed I started going to, this happened in I always would go early. I started doing yoga in New York, which is ironic being from California. Don't do yoga here, go to New York and do yoga. But I would be the first one there and like the last one to leave. And part of it was a practice in not being part of the rat race in New York. I didn't want to get caught up in the like go, go, go. So it was in one way I did it, was like, okay, I just have extra time. Now here in San Diego, I actually usually show up as early as they'll let me. Like it's usually half an hour-ish to like go in the room, and I lie on my mat, like usually on my stomach. Like I'm not doing anything. I don't have my phone. I don't have another person. I don't have anything to do. There's no class. Usually there's no one even there. And I don't fall asleep, and I don't even meditate. I just lie there.
Just be.
Yeah, and at first it started with like, oh, I was there early, so I did it. And then it was like, oh, this was kind of nice. And I noticed that it's the only moment of most days that there's nothingness, right? There's no people, there's no noise, there's no phone, my thoughts just stop, because usually it's like 6 a.m. Like, how many thoughts do I have that early?
Right.
And I like crave it now. It's like your walk. And I think that it's important. I really think it's important for people to find their version of that. Walk, beach run, yoga, whatever it is, beat up a boxing bag or punching bag until like you have no more thoughts in your mind.
I think that's absolutely true. It's like clearing your cache, your storage space for the day. Like, like you wake up and sometimes still got just all the shit from before, and it's like, no, today is today. Like, what is it? Yesterday is gone forever. Tomorrow's yet to be. The destiny of today lies with thee.
That's good.
Like,
that's good that you just remembered that so perfectly.
My favorite version of that is from Kung Fu Panda. One of the best movies ever made, in my opinion. But it's yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why it's called the present.
I don't know if that's from Kung Fu Panda.
It definitely is.
I don't know if it's originally
it's
from. It's
probably definitely not. I do believe it's Lao Tzu.
Yeah,
or somebody like him.
It's
an old.
It's so awesome.
It's an old Kung Fu monk person.
It's someone from somewhere. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know that the writer of Kung Fu Panda wrote that.
It's most definitely not.
That's awesome.
It's definitely most likely thousands of years old. But
yeah,
modern culture, Kung Fu Panda, Jack Black's a genius.
I think that you're like the cartoons and kids books do something that as adults we don't get anymore. Not all, right? There's some stuff that's just fluff, but I mean, I remember being a kid in the books I read, there was a lesson, right? There was a theme, there's a lesson, there was like a moral or something. And then we get older and things become simply for like entertainment. Now maybe if you really dig deep, there's something, but it's not like there for us to take. It's just like, dull your mind, dull out, get away from all your problems, here's a story. But if we look at like really great movies or a lot of kids books, a lot of kids cartoons, that still exists. That's something I really miss. It's one of my goals is to actually help create not only like podcasts or books or movies, documentaries, that people get like, wait, I can be entertained and I can learn at the same time. I can expand my mind versus just like, and you don't feel like it's exhausting, right? Like sometimes we're like, oh, I don't want to watch that because it's going to be like exhausting. No, I want it to be like, no, it's actually going to relax me, and I'm still going to be able to take stuff in.
I like that. Well, that actually perfectly runs us into, we're going to wrap up here, but if you could tell us what's next for you, where people can find you. And again, Alex Terranova, author of Fictional Authenticity, a book all about how to first recognize the fact that you are living an inauthentic life, then acknowledge it, and then the steps to change yourself into the person that you need to be and able to become the person that you want to be.
That was really well said.
So,
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can get that right, like on Amazon. I'm about to come out with the audiobook, which has been a whole new thing. I did it myself. I did all the audio for it, the voiceover, everything.
He signed it for me. I feel special.
So the audiobook will be out soon for people that don't read. A lot of people don't read, which is totally cool, right? Like, it's,
Yeah.
So, find me. You can find me on Instagram, Inspirational Alex. You can go to my website, thedreammason.com. And what's next for me? So I'm working on 2 more books right now. One is kind of personal growth, personal development, but with like a lot of rawness to it. And the other one is a kid's book, actually. In a way of like what I'm learning and things that I wish I had kind of gotten like exposed to as a kid, but through the like eyes of some dogs.
That's cool. Everything's better with dogs.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Everything.
And then the biggest thing right now is this documentary project that is, we don't know what we're doing. We're totally like, don't stop at the, we don't know how, and like, let's just create and like learn and create and create and learn, and we'll figure it out. I think,
Ready, fire, aim.
yeah, 2022 is like, I want to give a TED Talk. That's like my, I'm like trying to figure out,
Are you setting it?
I have a date written on a wall.
Specific date. What's your specific date?
Well, so I don't know the TED Talk calendar, right? So there's a part of it, but I have like August 20th, 2020. So I would say the way I do it is like the TED Talk would be right around that date. But I think the thing that I'm trying to figure out right now is it about this? Because I have an idea about this, or is there something different? And I think, look, if I was my own client, I'd be like, just choose, dude. Just pick and go, and like stop the whole conversation about it just as you do nothing.
Absolutely. Well, hell yeah. So you said Inspirational Alex on Instagram. Okay, perfect. Thank you guys for watching. Go check him out, Inspirational Alex on Instagram. Keep an eye out for his TED Talk in August of 2020. I know I'm going to August 20th, 2020.
I got to do it.
It's going to be happening.
Dude,
nice to meet you,
thank you for having me. It was awesome.
Absolutely. We'll definitely have to do another one of these someday.
That was awesome. Thanks, man.
You got it.